Picture Jude Bellingham standing in the mixed zone in Miami, still soaked in sweat, a World Cup semi-final ticket in his pocket, hearing that his own manager just called the win lucky. Picture Thomas Tuchel, seconds earlier, in front of a live television camera, refusing to celebrate a result that sent England into the Final Four for the first time since 2018. He is not smiling. He is listing mistakes. Sloppy, not fast enough, not repetitive enough. Now picture Bellingham's face when a reporter reads those exact words back to him, live on camera, minutes later. He does not defend the performance. He does not thank the manager. He looks almost bored and says 4 words that will follow England all the way into Atlanta. Yeah, well, whatever. That is the sentence this entire story lives inside. Because this is not a normal post-match spat that gets forgotten by Monday. This is England's 2 most important men in the building, the manager who built this run and the player who is single-handedly carrying it, publicly refusing to agree on what actually happened on that pitch. That is the real story nobody else is telling you right now. Everyone is still talking about a camera cable and a disallowed goal. Nobody is talking about the fact that England's own dressing room might be cracking open 3 days before the biggest match of their lives. So, let us get into it. Because this one is bad, start with the match itself, because it deserves the credit first. Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Gardens, Florida, Saturday, the 11th of July. 64,478 fans inside, in heat that felt past 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Andreas Schjelderup put Norway ahead in the 36th minute with a strike that sent the away end into full voice. Bellingham equalized right before halftime, driving into the box and finishing across the goalkeeper. Norway had a second goal ruled out in the second half after Erling Haaland was penalized for a push on Elliot Anderson just before the corner was taken. The match went to extra time. In the 3rd minute, Bellingham struck again, pouncing on a spilled save from Norway's goalkeeper, Ørjan Nyland. 2-1. England through to a semi-final against Argentina on Wednesday in Atlanta, 1 win from a first World Cup final since 1966. By any normal standard, that is a phenomenal result. A 23-year-old scoring twice in a World Cup quarterfinal in brutal Miami heat to send his country 1 match from the final. Bellingham has now scored 6 goals this tournament, level with Harry Kane's own England record, and this was not the first time he had done exactly this. He also scored twice just to drag England past Mexico in the round of 16, and Kane himself had to rescue England from a shock early exit against DR Congo before that. 3 knockout rounds, 2 different players. The same story every single time, England falling behind or falling apart, and one of their 2 stars dragging them out of it alone. Tuchel himself is not some inexperienced coach thrown into the deep end either. He arrived in England in 2025 with a resume that includes Paris Saint-Germain, Chelsea, and Bayern Munich, a manager known across Europe for being blunt to the point of brutal with his own players. That reputation is exactly what is now colliding with a 23-year-old who has just been named man of the match in back-to-back knockout games and clearly feels he has earned the right to talk back. And then everyone waited for Thomas Tuchel to speak. Here is the official version. Tuchel walks up to the microphone straight after the final whistle and says, quote, "We made life very, very difficult for ourselves today. The result is fantastic. We are in the last 4. It is amazing. I am not happy with the performance." End quote. He calls it sloppy. He says England were not fast enough, not repetitive enough in possession. And here's what actually happened next. Bellingham, told about those comments in a separate interview minutes later, does not soften them at all. He responds, quote, "Yeah, well, whatever. It is difficult out there. It is a tough shift," end quote. Then he adds a line that reads like a direct shot back at his own coach. Quote, "Maybe he does not know what it is like to play in these conditions against Erling Haaland, Odegaard, Nusa, Sorloth," end quote. That is not an easy team to play against, he adds. A 23-year-old live on camera 3 days before a World Cup semifinal, suggesting his own manager does not fully understand what the team was actually up against. Official version. And a very different reality. Not a disagreement, not a joke, a public disconnect. So let us zoom out, because this is not the first time this exact dynamic has shown up under Tuchel. Since replacing Gareth Southgate in 2025, Tuchel has built a reputation for blunt, uncomfortable honesty, even after wins that should feel like celebrations. England needed a Harry Kane rescue act to avoid a shock early exit against DR Congo in the round of 32. They needed a Bellingham brace just to get past Mexico in the round of 16. Now they needed another Bellingham brace just to get past Norway. 3 knockout matches, 3 white knuckle finishes. 3 times the manager has stood in front of the cameras looking more troubled than relieved. 3 matches, 3 rescue acts, all in the same tournament, all building toward the same uncomfortable question. And here is where it gets more interesting, because the players are starting to respond differently to it. Kane asked directly about Tuchel's frustration, chose his words far more carefully than Bellingham did, saying only that it still feels like there is a part of him that knows we can do better, which in a way is a good thing. That is a captain trying to keep the peace. Bellingham did not seem interested in keeping the peace at all. Now here's where the pile of evidence really starts to stack up. DR Congo, round of 32, Harry Kane forced to rescue England almost single-handedly from a shock exit. Mexico, round of 16, Bellingham scores twice just to drag England through a match they were expected to win with ease. Norway, quarterfinal, Bellingham scores twice again, and Tuchel calls the win lucky on live television minutes later. Bellingham, mixed zone, refuses to accept the word lucky and hits back at his own manager's grasp of the opposition. Tuchel, press conference the very next day, does not walk it back, telling reporters, quote, "Absolutely, no one disputes that," end quote. England's other semi-finalists, Spain, France, and Argentina, all arrived at the Final Four with their managers and star players publicly aligned. No daggers, no mixed messages, nothing for opposing fans to point at and laugh. England, meanwhile, walk into Atlanta with their captain choosing his words like he is diffusing something, and their best player refusing to pretend there is nothing to diffuse. 5 knockout matches into this tournament, and England have needed a genuine rescue act in 3 of them, with the 2 men doing the rescuing and the managing now visibly not reading from the same page. So let's put the whole thing together. This is not one prickly quote taken out of context. It is a pattern of a team that keeps winning ugly, and a manager who refuses to pretend otherwise, and a talisman who has stopped pretending to agree with him. Let me be fair for a second, because this channel does not deal in fantasy. Tuchel never actually criticized Bellingham by name. His frustration was aimed at the team's shape and passing, not at any individual player, and the very next day, he was careful to praise both Bellingham and Kane directly, saying there is nothing wrong with 2 players who love the responsibility and decide matches for you. Bellingham, for his part, never once suggested England should have lost, and his overall message that ugly wins still count is hardly controversial in football. English football has survived brutally honest managers and mouthy young stars before, going all the way back to Terry Venables and Paul Ince trading words at a tournament decades ago. But that is exactly what makes this a story instead of a footnote, because the timing could not be worse. 3 days before facing Lionel Messi's Argentina in a World Cup semi-final, the 2 most important voices in the England camp are not reading from the same script, and everyone watching, including Argentina's dressing room, can see it too. Not a scandal, not a crisis yet, but a crack right when England can least afford one. So here's the question. Is this just honest football talk that gets overblown the moment the cameras start rolling? Or is this an England camp that is quietly starting to fray at the exact wrong moment? And on Wednesday in Atlanta, when Bellingham needs to produce again against the best team left in this World Cup, whose version of this team do you actually trust more? The manager who says they were lucky, or the player who says they won dirty and would happily do it again? Because Argentina will not care who is right. Lionel Messi and Julian Alvarez do not need England distracted to be dangerous. They are the defending champions, unbeaten in 12 straight World Cup matches, and they will punish any team that walks out even slightly divided. If Tuchel and Bellingham cannot find the same page by Wednesday night, this quiet disagreement in a Miami mixed zone might end up being the story people point back to, whichever way the semifinal goes. Tell me below. A like genuinely helps more than you would think. Subscribe if you want World Cup coverage that treats every headline like it actually matters, not just the loudest one. England have 60 years of hurt behind them and 1 match between them and a World Cup final. Whether that dressing room is united or quietly cracking might decide which way this entire tournament turns.